Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Allison Theobald, Marketing Communications Manager for Eaton. And today, Pete Eggeman, EMC Director of VSPEX Ecosystem with the Global Solutions Group, and Ted Bonner, Director of Business Development at Eaton, will be discussing EMC and Eaton's collaboration. They'll highlight the benefits of EMC VSPEX and VSPEX Blue, a crucial element to optimizing business continuity, the value Eaton brings to VSPEX, VSPEX Blue, and the VSPEX Ecosystem Program. But before I start, let's go over a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of the portal, you'll find a resource list button, which will direct you to important information worth checking out. So you'll see a brochure, a couple of reference architecture designs down there, so be sure to check those out. Also, you should see a Q&A button at the bottom where you can submit your questions throughout the presentation. So each question will be submitted privately to the Eaton team, and they'll be answered at the end of the presentation. If for some reason we don't get to your question, we'll certainly follow up afterwards. Also, we'll have a polling question right after, I think it's about the 9th or 10th slide. So if you could respond to that polling question, that'd be awesome, and we'll show the results at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Pete and Ted.
Thank you very much, Allison. My name is Pete Eggeman. I work for EMC at our corporate headquarters in Hopkinton. My responsibility at EMC is to manage the VSPEX ecosystem and our VSPEX lab validation process. And so today, really what I want to do is tee up VSPEX and VSPEX Blue and talk about it in the context of the way we look at the converged infrastructure market and the different types of converged infrastructures that customers use. And then what I'll do is I'll hand it over to Ted, and Ted will walk you through the reference architectures that Eaton has created that talk about power management and how it adds value to our VSPEX solutions. Okay, so let's talk about the evolving landscape for converged infrastructure. And the way that I think about converged infrastructure is I think about it from the perspective of the IT guy. And if you're an IT guy, you're under a lot of pressure today, and you're under pressure by the business, because the business, at the end of the day, if you think about this from a business perspective, the business user wants to be able to get onto a converged infrastructure. Well, actually, they don't even care what it is, right? But they want to get onto an environment that presents a catalog, and that catalog will list out different services that they can consume in a self-service manner. So, for example, in this catalog, as a business user, I might want to fire up a VM, or maybe I want to fire up a VM with an analytics solution, or maybe I'm a developer and I want to fire up my dev environment. So that the IT guy is under a lot of pressure to respond in a very quick and nimble and agile way to that business user. And we believe that converged infrastructure is one of the ways that IT buyer can respond to the needs of those business. So if we look at the evolving landscape for converged infrastructure, we have three offerings that we bring to market to satisfy those needs. The first is a reference architecture program. And you can think of reference architectures as really sort of a recipe. And that recipe is provided to the channel partner. And the channel partner has flexibility in terms of how he builds that converged solution, as long as he follows the best practices and the sizing guidelines in that reference architecture. The second type of solution that we have is what we call a fully converged system, and you'll know those as our V-block systems. The difference between a reference architecture and a converged system is, as I said, in a reference architecture, it's the channel partner that's building out the solution based on that recipe or based on that reference architecture. In a converged system, that's actually built out in the EMC factory, right? So it's racked and stacked and provisioned and tested and sent into the channel as a fully operational system, and you basically plug it in and all the implementation is done for the infrastructure itself. The third type of system is what we call hyper-converged, and hyper-converged is exactly what it sounds like, right? It's the traditional server, switch, storage, converged into a very low-profile form factor. In our case, our hyper-converged solution is called VSPEX Blue, and VSPEX Blue is a 2U appliance, and it's got a number of different blades within that 2U appliance, and you can scale it out by adding additional appliances into the cluster. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Rack scale, I won't really talk about today, but think of rack scale as sort of the enterprise equivalent of a hyperconverged appliance. It basically just allows you to scale into much more high-end enterprise class environments. So let's talk about reference architecture in a little more detail. In the reference architecture program that we call VSPEX, EMC does all the heavy lift, right? So we, in our labs down in Durham, we'll put together, all of the different types of configurations that we have within this reference architecture, and we'll do the scalability testing, we'll do the performance testing, we'll do the boundary testing, and we'll develop all the best practices that allow a channel partner to respond to a customer who says, hey, you know what? Instead of a Cisco server, maybe I'm a Lenovo shop, or instead of a Cisco, fabric, maybe I'm a Brocade shop. So depending on the needs of that customer, the channel partner can use this recipe to build out any number of different types of VSPEX solutions. And again, as long as he does it using that reference architecture or using that recipe, you can be assured that that system is going to work as prescribed. And in fact, EMC will stand by those systems and take single first call of support on any of those VSPEX solutions that the channel partner builds out. And then finally, we will differentiate our VSPEX solutions with an ecosystem of value-added ISV and IHV providers such as Eaton. And what we do is we engage the partner, we bring them into the lab, and we actually do a validation to make sure that before a partner is brought into our ecosystem, that they actually can meet a series of testing requirements that we have to be called a VSPEX ecosystem partner. Okay, so this is just a snapshot of a handful of the ecosystem partners that we have, and you may recognize some of these guys at the top of the stack here, but we have everything from SaaS-based management and orchestration and monitoring providers. We have tools that allow you to configure a solution, a complex conversion infrastructure solution, provision that solution. And of course, the reason why we're here today is to talk more specifically about Eaton and the different ways that you can create what we call sort of the fifth element of VSPEX, which is how are you going to manage the power, and how are you going to react when there's a problem with the power in that VSPEX environment. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about Blue just for a second. We announced Blue about a month ago, and VSPEX Blue is as I said, a hyper-converged appliance. It's built on top of VMware, so it's vSAN based, vCenter, and then a management layer called Evo Rail, as well as some value-added software that EMC is embedding into this appliance for things like cloud storage, point-in-time recovery, backup, those kind of things. So VSPEX Blue, you think back to the conversation we were just having around that IT guy and the pressure the IT guy is in trying to respond to the needs of the business. The value prop in these hyper-converged appliances is, this comes out of the factory fully provisioned. You power this on, and within 9 minutes, you're actually provisioning VMs. So you can see, why this is important to that IT buyer to say, hey, look, I can build out in a very, very quick and agile way a converged infrastructure solution and scale it by adding additional appliances into my cluster, and I can be provisioning those VMs or allowing the business user to provision VMs literally within 9 minutes of powering on the appliance. All right, the appliance has literally 4 different options. There's what we call a standard model and a performance model. The only difference between those 2 models is the amount of memory that comes in the appliance. And the other option that you have is connectivity, whether it's optical or copper on the connectivity side. Each of these 2U appliances has 4 blades, and each blade has a solid-state drive and 3 spinning drives as part of the blade itself. In terms of scalability, you're looking at on the order of 100 reference VMs or 250 desktop users per 2U appliance. And as I said, you can scale these appliances by simply adding additional 2U appliances into your cluster, up to a maximum of 4 today. And then later on this year, you'll be able to put 8 of these 2U appliances in the cluster. But again, think about, when I talk about, hey, putting eight of these appliances in a cluster and selling it into a robo opportunity, you better be thinking about, okay, if I have that much compute and storage in a robo, how am I going to protect, that environment if I have a power fluctuation or if, my power goes down, right? How am I going to move those VMs out of that robo site and move it up into a protected environment back in a data center somewhere? And again, that's what Ted will talk about in a few minutes is, how we can add power management into these 2U appliances and create a much more robust solution for the primary customers that we're going to be selling to these, which are the robo sort of opportunities and customers. We will differentiate VSPEX Blue with what we call a VSPEX Blue market. The VSPEX Blue market is it's a catalog, and it's a catalog that's presented to the user and allows the user to be able to simply hit a button and download value-added components into the appliance. When we went out to market with the VSPEX Blue appliance, we had 3 EMC internal products that we put into this catalog, and we're having active conversations with Ted and the Eaton team about putting the IPM module as part of the VSPEX Blue market. So as time goes on, you'll see us populate the Blue market with important applications such as Eaton's IPM that allow customers to get more value out of their Blue appliance. Okay, so this is where we're gonna turn it over. I just wanted to sort of set the stage there, talk about VSPEX Blue, how it fits into our vision of converged infrastructure, and just make the point here that, as I said earlier, when we talk about VSPEX, we always like to have the conversation about power management, and we refer to power management as the 5th element, especially when we're talking about the Eaton offerings. So Ted's going to actually go through much more detail around what these reference architectures are that Eaton has created, how they fit into VSPEX and VSPEX Blue. But before I turn it over to Ted, we're going to do a quick poll question, and then Ted will pick up the conversation within 30 or 40 seconds after we put up this poll question. So let me put that up. And if you'd be so kind to answer the poll question, we'll move on and get into the good stuff with Ted.
All right. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate it. So everyone hopefully had some time to respond to the question. Thank you for that. So I'm Ted Bonner. I'm actually a business development manager at Eaton, and I focus on our commercial alliances. So specifically work with Pete and his team in enabling our power products as it relates to VSPEX and a true go-to-market and how we drive value, and that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about today. Without further ado, there's actually three areas that we actually focus on when we think about our Eaton portfolios as a whole: save time, save money, and reduce risk. And when you think about power, we have to actually do those 3 things for you. Because when you think about a VSPEX, we're the 5th element of converged infrastructure, or VSPEX, we have to add some value, and we feel our values in those 3 areas. So how do we do that? Save time. We reduce time through on-site configuration startup costs. Eaton has 400 technicians throughout the country that actually can do on-site service assessments, on-site service startup, and on-site service warranty and post-warranty support. We have the most service technicians out there of any power vendor in the industry, and we're proud of that. So we're there to actually save you time and have seamless issues if they arise in your environment. Our management tool is a single pane of glass through management, so I'll talk a little bit about that. And we have simplified integration. Through our power management software, we integrate into the different layers within the stack, and we feel having power as part of that management gives you a closer vision of what's really going on in your power environment in addition to your core IT equipment. Save money. We have a pay-as-you-grow capability, high efficiency products. Our products are actually some of the most high efficiency and in some categories the most efficient products out there in the marketplace. And then lastly, we reduce risk by our integration with vCenter. It actually allows for load shedding. We can do load shedding. We have a load shedding capability through our integrations with vCenter, which I'll talk about in a little bit and get a little more detail. And lastly, we do have a disaster recovery feature as well. So just moving on to what our relationship looks like and what we've been doing with EMC. So we're part of the Technology Connect Advantage Partner Program, and we've been part of that for over a year and worked both with that team within EMC to try to drive more validations or more things from a marketing aspect to get closer to EMC in the marketplace, but also with Pete and his team and looking at ways we can enable our partner community to drive more solutions as it relates to VSPEX. We're VSPEX lab validated. We were the first power management vendor to do that last year before EMC World in May of last year. And since then, we've really kind of driven this message out there in the community to look at ways we can enable our partners to help you sell power with VSPEX and make it more efficient. We do, anytime there's an opportunity, we do joint engagements at trade shows. We have training events. So like we're doing today, we also have things at EMC World, at VMworld, where we have EMC speak in our booth or vice versa. So anywhere we can align in the marketplace to show our validations and our proud of being part of the ecosystem of VSPEX, we do that. So anywhere we can do that, that's a focus. We have published reference designs, which I'll talk about, and lastly, I mentioned the only power vendor in the ecosystem. So jumping right into the Eaton technology that relates to VSPEX, we're a single pane of glass. So the real integration and the value that we bring is that our power management software, which is our Intelligent Power Manager, integrates with all the virtualized layers. Our most integration is actually with VMware. We started working with VMware back in 2009. We have more integrations with VMware and vCenter than any other vendor. We're doing more and more development as we go along. You'll see some things announced at the end, middle of this summer around some of the other things we're doing with VMware. We also integrate with UCS. So if you have Cisco UCS in your environment, your VSPEX environment, we actually have integration via power capping that I'll talk about in a little bit. We're labs validated, so it's been tested and approved. And we feel that power is always the forgotten child, if you will. You're always focused on configuring, the core infrastructure of VSPEX, and we want to bring the power question or the power thought into the discussion when you're actually looking at what applications you're running off of your VSPEX and what power you have for that. So specifically around our Intelligent Power Manager, we actually, as I said, integrate with all the virtualized layers, all the virtualized platforms out there. We have the most integration with VMware and Citrix, obviously, but you can see all the different points of integration here, and we value this, and we think it's, as things move virtualized, we now are bringing power into the fold as it relates to virtualization. So there's 4 or 5 key specific values that we bring with our software integrations. We're a hypervisor plugin. We can do load shedding. We have disaster recovery feature. We're agentless, and now with Cisco UCS, we can do power capping, and I'll go into these in a little bit more detail. So as it relates to the plugin, so this is a picture of the actual dashboard for the vCenter, and you can see all the way to the right there, that is the actual Intelligent Power Manager. So actually you can, as you're inside your vCenter, our IPM or Intelligent Power Management software, that is actually right on the dashboard. So no additional software is required. Really ease of managing your power within a virtualized environment. So one of the key features that we have is load shedding. What is load shedding? So load shedding is through our integrations with the vCenter, we can actually shed VMs or move VMs. We can do live migrations. And why is that important? Well, in the event of a power outage, we can actually extend your runtime. So we can, if you have a power outage in a VSPEX environment and you have VMs that you're running, you can move critical VMs or non-critical VMs to the cloud or to another site, and you can actually reduce the load that's on that server and see your runtime go out. Why is runtime so important in a virtualized environment? Actually, the moving of VM, the virtualization environment, has actually caused the need for more runtime because it takes a fairly long time to move VMs. So if you have a UPS in your environment, or if you're virtualized and you want a true disaster recovery risk mitigation program, you really need to have a UPS in your environment. We're integrated. We can actually tell you what happens, and you can move those VMs out before your server goes down. You can look at calculations of, okay, I have this many VMs on this particular server. It'll take me X amount, and if this happens, I want to move these 10 VMs over here. This is how long it takes, so I need to build out X number of minutes of runtime in my environment. So really, really cool feature. The other thing we have is disaster recovery. So we integrate with VMware Site Recovery Manager. So we can actually bring up the secondary. Sorry, I went one ahead there. Apologize. So we can actually bring up that secondary site all via our IPM software. So we can synchronize in a hybrid cloud situation. If you're running SRM, you can actually, through IPM, bring up that secondary site, move VMs over all in one motion. The key here is you can actually set policies. So you can go in and say, okay, with X number of minutes runtime remaining, I want to move these 10 VMs to this site. I want it to pull up and check and synchronize that site before I move them over, or I want to move them to this other outside cloud, public cloud scenario, whatever it may be. You can do that all with our integrations in the virtualized layer. Lastly is the fourth key piece of our initiatives and our value as it relates to our integrations with vCenter is our remote agentless host management. So there's no host or no additional agents that's required on the actual software itself. And as you know, agents curate server performance, and agents in VMware cannot be installed directly on the host. So big advantage, no host, no very clean environment, provides a lot more value to the performance. And then lastly, we do actually do power capping with the UCS servers. So you can auto-recognize the servers within our IPM software along with all of your power devices, and you can see the actual parameters, the power parameters and some of the other parameters associated with that server right within our IPM software. And then lastly, we can actually power cap the server. So we can control the input into that Cisco server. And why is that important? Well, when you have a power anomaly or a power issue within a virtualized environment, our IPM software will actually tell you. You can actually initiate vMotion, and not only you'll see that load on that server go down, but now you can assign specific, if you have UCS, you can assign specific load for that particular server, and it's almost hard-coded. It's another insurance policy, if you will, and you can take this feature from an energy saving and now utilize it with our integration in a power anomaly situation to drive true business continuity. And then lastly, I want to kind of go through some of the reference designs we have. We have various reference designs relative to VSPEX. Here's an example of VSPEX private cloud with Cisco and VMware. But the four key attributes for power management infrastructure for VSPEX are your UPS, your rack PDU, and your software. So those are the four key elements. But this just goes to show you that we have all the elements that's needed around the infrastructure for a VSPEX in a private cloud scenario with Cisco and VMware. Similarly, we have this with VSPEX Blue, and this is a really big effort for us. With the announcement of VSPEX Blue, we're very excited about it. When you actually think about a VSPEX Blue environment, it almost lends itself to having a UPS in the environment. So we feel this could be a differentiator, and we're working with all of the partners out there that are EMC partners selling VSPEX and VSPEX Blue, as well as their distributor partners, to really develop a go-to-market to make it easy for you to actually order these solutions when you're ordering a VSPEX Blue. And then lastly, we also have VSPEX Blue for larger VSPEX Blue. So 800, here's an example of an 880 VDI deployment. But again, you see the components don't change. You have your four key components for that VSPEX Blue when it relates to power: rack, PDU, UPS, and power management. And then lastly, we have we have some resources for you actually. So we have a number of resources. For the last year or so, we've worked very closely with Pete and his team and the EMC marketing team to actually really drive our message. So we have all sorts of solutions out there. If you go to eaton.com/VSPEX, we have pre-reference designs for both VSPEX and VSPEX Blue. So there's a lot of resources out there for you to access. And then lastly, I wanted to just finish with the fact that we're really excited to be at EMC World this year. So if you're going to be there, please stop by the Eaton booth, which is booth 120. It starts May 4th in Las Vegas, and we'll have a big presence. We'll be part of the VSPEX ecosystem. We talk about our power management software. We'll have a team of people both from marketing and our field sales organization to really talk to you about our value. And so please, if you're at EMC World, please stop by the Eaton booth. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Allison, who's going to review our poll questions. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Pete and Ted. I will get to the poll results. Oh, you'll see them on your screen right now. But with the remainder of our time, I think we have the chance to get through a couple questions. So the first one that we received, Pete, I think this one's going to go to you. When was VSPEX Blue announced? How can I order one, and where can I get more information?
Okay, great. Yeah, so VSPEX Blue was announced about a month ago at the VMware Partner Exchange, and we've been actively going to market and selling these Blue appliances since then. The Blue appliance itself is actually manufactured and provisioned at our distribution partners. So if you're a customer or a reseller, you'll go to your distribution partner of choice, either Avnet, Arrow, or Tech Data, to order the VSPEX Blue appliance. But you can either go directly on the distributor sites, or you can go to emc.com/VSPEX, and on that site you'll see all there is to know about VSPEX Blue in terms of what it is, what the use cases are, how we size it, and so forth. So emc.com/VSPEX for more information. Thanks for the question, Allison.
Thanks, Pete. And I think we have time for one more. And Ted, I think this one might be for you. So we had a question. Do I order Eaton Power Management separately from VSPEX or VSPEX Blue?
Yes. So actually, we're part of the ecosystem. So we want to make it as easy as possible to order our solutions. So what we're actually doing is we're actually coming up with bundles associated with VSPEX and VSPEX Blue. So some of the standard offerings out there that you have for VSPEX, and particularly VSPEX Blue, you'll be able to order under one part number, which will actually include that power management software. Right now, our power management software is actually free up to 10 nodes. You actually, if you want more than 10 nodes, it's about a $99 list price or $999 list price license. We're doing some new things when we add some new features and things around that. So you'll see some additional options as it relates to buying or licensing our software in the coming months, as well as some additional features that we're adding through further integrations with VMware. But right now it's free up to 10 nodes. You do have to order it separately. However, we're working with our channel partners and the EMC distributors to actually put together bundles that make it really easy for you to order these solutions that all include our power management software. If you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out. We'd love to walk you through some demos of how this works. We have a lab in Avery Creek, North Carolina, that we could show you do live migrations. We have a VSPEX set up there. So we'd love to kind of show you how this works real time in a live demo.
Thanks, Ted.
Okay. Yeah.
So hopefully everyone was able to see the poll results up on the screen. And I think that's just about all we have time for today. So thank you for everyone for attending. We really hope that you learned something new. Be on the lookout for a follow-up email from Eaton, which will have the recording. And feel free to pass that recording on to colleagues who maybe weren't able to attend today. And as Ted mentioned, if you are attending EMC World, we'd love to chat more with you at booth 120. So this concludes the live event. As we mentioned before, for any other questions that we didn't get to today, we'll follow up with you separately. But we hope everyone has a great day. Thank you so much.